This is Tifus here. I just wanted to take an opportunity to commemorate this special occasion. New person joining DarkMatch here. You might have noticed him on Spoonie's forums. theArrow is joining us, and he's going to be reviewing some shows that we don't normally get to. And for those of you that missed it, Ali, however you pronounce it, there's like 5 different ways. He debuted on an episode of DarkMatch just a couple weeks ago. We didn't really say anything to commemorate it then and really point it out because it was rather impromptu back then. But yeah, it's 2 new voices you've been hearing. This is the second one you'll be hearing tonight. Look for him on future episodes of DarkMatch. And for both of you guys, welcome to the broadcast. Have fun.
What's up, everybody? This is theArrow here with the DarkMatch, and I would love to be doing this with other people, but nobody wants to cover the C, D, and F shows of the WWE. So we're gonna follow the shows with from their chronological order, starting with Tough Enough on Monday. They start off, of course, with a recap of last show. Rima's back. Ryan actually surprised me with this promo he gave last week, and then this is what now, week 4. Last week we saw that douche Michael go home. Nobody really cares. Then as mentioned last week, Rima does some individual training with Bill, and Bill thinks she's like a bitch, which is funny, because she can't do anything real. Well, I mean, as limited as she can be, she came in fully green to the show, so, 3 weeks, maybe 4, you don't know when this training's going on, but it should be, night after night, and I know they have to kind of squash it into one, but they do this rolling exercise, and she sucks, and then, she's bragging about, or she's showing Bill, I've got my new bedazzled Tough Enough shirt, and he's like, I don't give a fuck, and, then Bill gives her, this heart-to-heart, and, tells her she's not cut out for this, and basically tells her to quit, and, Rima mentally is there, and she's willing to do it, but physically she's just not capable, and that's her problem. So our next segment, we bring in Stone Cold, and who brings in Bret Hart, and he talks about being a fan first, then a wrestler. And, except they bleeped out the word wrestler. I know, real shocker there. From what I've heard from the Brian and Vinny show is that the people, Shed Media, who produces this, and WWE were fighting over terms like indies, wrestling, and versus Superstar Diva and all that stuff, and I believe what they said the agreement is the people not under WWE contract can use those words, but those under it cannot. All those under it cannot. So really, from what I gather, that really only leaves Booker T, who cannot use them, and other WWE superstars who come in there. Such as, the John Cena, The Big Show, Rey Mysterio, who's going to be in the upcoming episode on this Monday. And, it's just stupid. It doesn't need saying at this point. Next they do some sort of agility drill, which they jump over the top rope. They go from, one ring apron to the center of the ring to the next ring ring apron. And they're all surprised Jeremiah excels, and while everyone else is not that good, of course you have a number of the top guys like Luke and Martin, Donny Osmond. I believe, if I remember right, Martin, he does all right. Luke, I think, suffers a little bit in this one. But Eric is just brutal. I mean, I understand the guy's like 6'5", but I mean, as already like said in the past weeks, he came there out of shape, but he cannot get over them. I think there's like one spot they show where he tries 3 times to get over just one of the ropes. I know all sorts of fancy smoke and mirrors. You never know how much they have into it, how much they edit this stuff, but it was just ugly. And then for some reason, they do roller skating, waitressing for agility. And of course, Eric has never skated. Neither has Andy. So, what I'm surprised is that nobody nobody really falls, outside of Eric. He falls once. And Bill DeMont, thank God for him, thinks it's pointless. And he's right. And then for some reason, after they're done roller skating, but there are still patrons inside of this restaurant, whatever the hell it was called, not important, they all start drinking and partying, and Rima does a table dance, Jeremiah does a striptease for some reason, and Andy is straight edge and bitter. He's kind of the most driven guy there. Andy, he's got like a pregnant wife at home, and while all the others were like drinking and socializing in the first week's episode, he was running on the treadmill, and they had him monologuing over, saying that he's here to do some, he's here to get that contract rather than, just make friends and drink, basically. Next up, we have the skills challenge, and they do some chain wrestling. I believe the order was jump over the ropes, headlock, Irish whip, shoulder block, Irish whip, leapfrog, hip toss. And of course, Rima's out first, then Eric, then Christina, and Tumbleweed, apparently, is her nickname. Blanche, I can't remember who they call Tumbleweed. Then the blonde chick, Evelise. Ryan was after that, then Jeremiah, then Andy, then Luke, and Martin wins again. And they're really trying to build the storyline that Luke is super arrogant guy, and doesn't shake hands and was selfish and all that jazz, it's really stupid. It's really annoying. It's just not, I don't think they really need much of a storyline for this show, and that's what they try and give it, but, that's reality TV these days. And then up next, they go to the deliberation room, and Bill hates Ryan again, aka Skid Marks. Trish thinks Ryan is a good waiter, and says it might be in his future, which is just a terrible thing to say. They all agree that the women are terrible, and Booker isn't there again because he's working SmackDown. He's barely been on the show, which is really weird. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just not that great. They are impressed by Jeremiah, and they say they've got a bunch of green people. Jeremiah is like the most improved, but Rima is stagnated. And the thing that they don't like act like or want to admit is that Jeremiah, before he did Tough Enough, he did a bunch of MMA stuff. And so the only reason he didn't get into wrestling earlier was because he kept winning. And so I guess they're trying to bury the idea that MMA takes no training and no talent to do, which obviously is not true. And then we get to the bottom 3, which this week, surprisingly, have no bottom 3. They just say Rima. Rima is just totally gone, and they only pick Rima. This would have been her 3rd week in a row in the bottom 3, or a 3rd time maybe. Yeah, I think it's 3rd time. I don't think the 2nd week they had her in the bottom 3. But anyway, Rima's gone. They say if you wanna if you want to work in WWE someday, just work in the indies or something like that, and work your way up. Someday you'll make it. And you know that her career or whatever, her time in WWE they'll probably bring her up a lot sooner than they should if they ever do. So that was Tough Enough. It was all right. We got to see Bill DeMont sit on Rima after I can't remember. I think it was she couldn't roll him over in a sunset flip, so he just kind of gave up and just sat on her. Got to see that. We got to see Luke's super mega heel turn. So there was that. Overall, I guess I picked Jeremiah to win in the beginning. I guess the two guys that I picked Jeremiah before even seeing the first episode of the show. I just saw the cast. I picked him after seeing a bit. I think Andy is the one who deserves it. AJ, which, they barely even show or even focus on, he's like the face, he's like a smaller face version of Luke, and nobody cares about him. And then you have Martin, who looks creepily like Donny Osmond. If you see a comparison photo, it's kind of creepy how similar they are. Bill could not have come up with a better name. And, Ryan's not going to last much longer. The women are terrible, and we know that women can wrestle. That's been established. I mean, you have Trish Stratus there. I mean, on last week's show, they brought in, damn it. Why can't I think of her, name, but... Oh, man, why do I only have Trish Stratus on the brain? Not a bad thing to have on the brain, but, was it Tori Wilson? I can't remember. Let me think. Stacy Keibler, that's who it was. Okay. Now that that's out of the way. I guess we should move into NXT. And as you know, NXT is pretty stupid. The NXT starts off with another stupid contest, and it's how well do you know your pro for 4 redemption points, and I'm guessing that they don't have eliminations, so really the entire wrestling on the show is pointless because they're not being judged on that, because you save yourself by getting redemption points, and the person with the most redemption points wins. So, and you can't get redemption points by in-ring ability. Crazy, I know. And then so they ask some questions, and Yoshi pretty much trolled Byron Saxton because they only asked like 3 questions. Maybe even it might have even been 2. And all Yoshi ever wrote was "fire up," and then of course Tyson basically did the same thing to Lucky Cannon, except for all of his stuff was about Lucky Cannon's fashion, his terrible cape, and his terrible hair highlights, and pretty much and his awful tights. I think one of the questions was what do you think your pro thinks you do the best out of any other NXT rookie? And I don't remember Lucky's answer, but Tyson said he has the best fashion. And then the next question was, if they were not to be a WWE superstar, what would they be? And Tyson answers fashion designer. But of course, only one person scored a point, that being Jacob Novak, and he got 1 right answer. Stupid. Of course. It's NXT. What do you expect? It's a funny show. But, of course, our first match of the night, we continue the black-on-black violence with another Titus O'Neil versus Darren Young match. And Darren Young, after last week, is either a heel or a tweener. I guess he's a tweener at this point, at the beginning of the match. And Chavo is apparently a face, but, Chavo switches back and forth at the drop of the hat. He's whatever they need him to be for the little that they need him to do, as long as he's not in the hair club for men. And the crowd actually seemed pretty interested in this, which is a rarity for an NXT match. And once again, Titus wins with the sit-down spinebuster after Darren Young releases a figure 4 leg lock, and because he wants Chavo to help him, and he's like, Chavo, why don't you help me? And Chavo's like, you need to do this on your own. And Darren's like, aw, and then he gets the sit-down spinebuster from Titus, and then Darren goes basically full heel. It was, overall it was a decent match. It wasn't that great, but, it's good enough for NXT. And I don't know if this is I wrote in the notes, it's on the same level as a typical Impact match. I don't know, I guess I should say it depends on who's in the ring in Impact, but, if I was just going on preconceived notions of what people say Impact is. Well, anyway, moving on. We got a recap of the Regal and Novak confrontation from last week in England. And then Novak and Regal will be in a match next week because they do a little back and forth again, and Regal wants to get in the ring now in his nice three-piece suit, minus the jacket, which of course you gotta toss off. But Jacob Novak just says, no, I can't. You know why? Because I already have a match this week. Yeah, you know what? Jacob Novak was really terrible on NXT Season 4, and Dolph Ziggler really hit it on the head when he said, all you are is a jacket from Express. He had no personality. He looked like he looked really terrible in all white trunks, white knee pads, white boots. It was just vanilla. And so this next match I initially thought was a singles match, but then apparently it was a tag match between Jacob Novak and JTG, which stands for Jobs to Guys, versus Kozlov and Connor O'Brien. And Regal calls JTG during the commentary the worst person in WWE, a waste of space. And that's an exact quote. And now, I'm guessing they're portraying Novak and JTG full heel at this point. And then the match is interrupted by a Karma vignette. And whoever is in the gorilla seat, once they come back, the gorilla seat obviously told Regal to, take back those comments on JTG, because he then says that it's not that JTG doesn't have talent, but he doesn't have pride. Then he mentions he used to be in a tag team. Whoops. 3-month rule that. And this match, it was a fairly boring match. It wasn't, there were no noticeable botches or mistakes. It just wasn't exciting. The finish was Kozlov comes in off hot tag, roughs up Novak, but for a bit, he gives him a couple of headbutts and I think maybe a scoop slam or something. Then he tags in Connor O'Brien for no reason, and then Connor O'Brien does the same thing. I think Novak kind of pushes him away, and then he rebounds off of the ropes, and then Novak wins with a big boot to the head. Obviously, we know what your finisher is going to be for WWE. After that, we get the Raw rebound, shows the main event, which, reminds me that Cole cheered that Cena was back to Raw, even though Cena was beating up his buddy Miz afterwards. He can't stay in character, and that's the problem with Michael Cole. Well, also, he's an idiot, but whatever. After that, we have a backstage segment with Yoshi. Apparently gave Maurice a purse, but the purse was destroyed, so Maurice comes to Yoshi and says, "Oh no, my purse has been destroyed." She blames Lucky Cannon for it, but, from the looks of it, it was probably Byron the Saxton. Just because he's jealous that Yoshi, it doesn't give him any attention because he now is apparently an item with Maurice. And Yoshi no longer dresses in ring gear, but a suit, probably to impress Maurice. And, because in previous weeks, I think week 1 through 5, he was always in ring gear, even if he didn't have a match. And I guess that's kind of how you can tell if guys are going to have a match that night, is if they're in ring gear or not. And after that stupid backstage segment, they have the "That's What I Am" commercials, and Randy will still go to the papers if he has to. Another commercial for Rock's birthday celebration, and they specifically show the TVPG logo. It's kind of seems larger than it usually should be. But we all know Rock doesn't care. He's gonna say whatever he wants. Okay, so we get to the next match, which is Byron Saxton versus Lucky Cannon with Maurice at ringside. Yoshi thinks it's a tag match because he's holding out of the tag rope. For some reason, the crowd is into this match again. It's a very boring, forgettable match. Yoshi and Kid brawl after the match. Yoshi and Kid brawl after Kid puts Lucky's leg on the rope during a pinfall to break the count. Yoshi then gets in the ring and beats down Lucky Cannon, making the match end in a DQ. Saxton is pissed because he's gotta prove his worth and beat Byron Saxton. Saxton gives Yoshi his finisher because he cost him the win, obviously. Lucky gives Saxton his finisher, which is another Fireman's Carry-based move because we need so many more of those in WWE as finishers. Maurice looked kind of impressed or something when Lucky did that. I don't know if it was spotty editing, but they don't have much time to edit this because they do shoot it on Tuesday during the SmackDown tapings, so, and that goes on and around, I guess, depending on where they're shooting SmackDown from. That happens. They usually have about I don't know, a couple hours of editing before it goes live. So I don't know if you can. They don't really have much time to terribly edit NXT. Okay, moving into Superstars, which Superstars for the past couple weeks has been pretty weak, but this week, spot on. It was fantastic, and you should all watch it. It was great. And it still also has the best theme in all of WWE programming. It's better than Nickelback, obviously. Better than Green Day. It's better than whatever the hell's on Tough Enough. And it's better than NXT. So yeah, and I guess it's not that hard to be better than any of those songs, but whatever. Getting into it, it starts with Jack Corpella. The ambiguously, I didn't know if when I first saw him, the first time I saw him, if he was a man or a woman. He's got very effeminate features, but, whatever. It's Jack Corpella. You see him once a week, if that. Starts with Corpella and Stryker. Tonight's main event, which they announce, is Natalya and Gail Kim versus Melina and Alicia Fox. So I'm expecting the best match ever. But our opening match is Tyson Kidd versus Trent Beretta. I think Kidd forgot that the Hart Dynasty broke up because he's still wearing the Hart Dynasty trunks and boots. I mean, I guess you don't want to throw that stuff out because, as a borderline, I know he's a jobber. And he's got the terrible hair still, which he grew out or something because it keeps getting taller. In his match against Trent Beretta, there's a lot of canned pop for Beretta. It was ridiculously fake. I still like Trent Beretta, but I don't expect the young crowd to get behind Trent Beretta, and I don't expect a lot of the older crowd to care about some 23-year-old from New York who lost his tag team partner during last year's early cuts or something. There's a lot of mat wrestling in this. A USA chant began. I'm not sure if it was fake, if it was canned or not, just plugged in there, because later on there was another USA chant, and it seemed really faint and kind of like they didn't know if they wanted in there. And for some reason, the announcers talk more about the draft and The Rock's birthday than the match. But during the match, they switch between a lot of headlocks, a lot of hammerlocks, some mat wrestling. Striker ribs that Coppella is about to get future endeavored, which was I don't know though. I mean, if they keep superstars going, and then instead of just switching to a kind of a dark match, untaped formula, as opposed to using superstars as their dark matches, I don't know. But not really a huge fan of Jack Coppella. Scott Stanford, on the other hand, A+. He's great. And then they explain what the country whipping match is for some. I don't know how Coppella knows what a country whipping match is, but apparently each team has its own strap. And you must win by submission, I believe he said. He could have said pinfall or submission, but I guess I didn't catch that. But I heard submission. Either way, who cares? And then the commercial for The Rock's birthday on an internet show. I hate that they do this for commercial breaks. On an internet show, they could show us the entire match, some good wrestling. This is actually a really good match. And it had it really picks up. The crowd got into it. They had a few good spots, and it's really back and forth. But then it ends up with Kid winning with the sharpshooter. It was a really good Superstars match. It was about 12 minutes, but the finish was very abrupt. I believe what happened was they, I think Beretta, if I'm remembering right, Beretta does top rope, I want to say missile drop kick, and then he gets Kid, he kind of no-sells it, they go into like a sunset flip, pin combination, and Kid gets up, Beretta's still down, and then he just puts him in the sharpshooter, and then Beretta taps instantly. Yeah. And then we get an Extreme Rules commercial after the finish. This one promoting the WWE title, Miz, Cena, and Morrison. More so on the Miz and Cena side rather than the John Morrison side. And then, of course, we get the That's What I Am commercial. Next is Zack Ryder, Woo Woo Woo, You Know It, versus David Hart Smith. D.H. Smith now sports a new theme, not that anyone even remembered his original theme, and a cowboy hat for some reason. I don't know. The most exciting things about this match, of course, besides Zack Ryder, was Josh and Scott talking about Z True Long Island Ice Story. They go pretty much the entire match back and forth a little bit about the show, and it's pretty good because they're talking about how Scott's kind of famous on it, and that's the only reason why he and Zach, or Scott likes Zach, is because he puts him on his show. But what I would like to see after this is that Scott and Zach kind of have a feud between Cole and Ryder. Cole and Swagger, because then we can have them working as just managers or something. I don't know. I kind of would like Stanford to transition into a managerial position for Ryder, but of course, managers don't exist in the current WWE for some reason. I mean, who was the last person to ever manage someone? I guess you can say Rajan's, or whatever Great Khali is. Was it Rajan Singh? For Great Khali, but of course he's just his brother and interpreter. Yeah. But, anyway. to the match. It was, they did some more boring draft talk before the match started. And then Zack Ryder, he just has a great in-ring dialogue, you know. He's always shouting. Pretty much every single match, you'll hear him shout, "Are you serious, bro?" And for some reason, all of the announcers on NXT, on Superstars, always are mentioning when they run this commercial or for The Rock's birthday. They are always wondering if Cena is gonna have a gift for The Rock. Oh my God! Obviously, there's something gonna happen. I mean, any small child could know that Cena's not just gonna let The Rock come on his show. Apparently, that's, you know. There was also a push Zack Ryder chant, which I loved during the match. But eventually, Zack Ryder tries to go for top rope move, doesn't get it. He sits down on the turnbuckle. D.H. Smith gets him for the superplex, and of course, they both sell it, but D.H. sells it a little less because, you know, he's the one who did the move. And then he gets up and does this Disco Inferno-esque dance for some reason. And I don't know if they're trying to give him some sort of cowboy gimmick, but he's the son of the British Bulldog, and he was trained in the Heart Dungeon, which we know is in Canada. Why are we giving him some sort of, like, cowboy disco dancer gimmick? I don't know what he did. He did some, like, disco dance with, like, a vertical clap at the end to, I don't know. Anyway, Ryder hits the Rough Rider, aka the Leaping Leg Lariat, and then, of course, Ryder has to give his snarky smile, and he gets up and says, "Take care, spike your hair." And then we get the Extreme Rules promo. This time, I believe it was for Orton and Punk. God, how could I forget that? Then we have the Raw Rebound, which actually does a lot better of rebounding Raw than the NXT Raw Rebound. Then we get the main event, which is Melina and Alicia Fox, and we get their entrance, actually. And then they cut to a commercial, which I believe was the That's What I Am commercial. Then we do the Natalya Gail Kim entrance. Melina and the Fox basically just play heels throughout the entire match. But Gail Kim is actually kind of acting like a decent tag partner. You can hear her shouting out things to Natalya, you know, like, watch this or watch that, whatever. Melina puts on a Dragon Sleeper to Natalya, but of course they, use that, wow, Natalya's so strong that she can stand up from off her knees and throw Melina off her. Then Natalya gives Gail Kim the hot tag. Gail Kim does a Hurricane Rana crossbody into the turnbuckle where she nicely, gets out of the ring onto the apron, and then does a missile drop kick onto I believe it was Alicia Fox at this point. Alicia Fox is in the ring, and then the count is broken up by Melina. It was an interesting finish, because it was basically Enziguri, but to the face, but that's not an Enziguri because the Enziguri has to be to the back of the head. But Scott Stanford called it the Eat the Feet twice, so I'm not sure if that's the official name for it. I wouldn't put it past WWE to call it that. But, that was the match. Overall, this is a really good episode of Superstars. Solid 3 matches, especially a solid Divas match, which you rarely ever see. So that was impressive enough. I'm really satisfied overall with I don't know what this would be, the C show. Then I guess Tough Enough can be the D show. Then NXT is always going to be the F show. But it's so damn funny that you can't I suggest you watch it. You just kind of, you have to see it to believe it. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode, or this week's, CD and F show recap. Overall, it was alright. Superstars, they get an A for this week. NXT gets a D. And Tough Enough, I'll just give you a C. It was an average week for Tough Enough. So I'll see you in the next Dark Match, or the next time we do one of these. Take care. Spike your hair. Woo woo woo. You know it.
He's a man, such a man, such a man. He's a real man's man. He's a man, such a man. Such a man.